Hey folks, welcome into another live edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break on this Tuesday. I'm Sara Civian, and lucky me, I'm joined by professional handicapper Doug Kezirian for the second day in a row. Doug, I hope you're not sick of me yet, but I know you're not sick of winning. You went 9-0 across all sports over the weekend, and I believe we made it 10-0 yesterday with our official play of the Sun covering the spread.
Yeah, I saw the ball well. I dipped my toe in college football, somehow went 4-0. But we had a monster weekend, starting with our Friday show with Albert that we touched on yesterday with the Storm into the weekend. It's been a nice run in the W, and you and I each had the same play in the two-game slate yesterday. So 2-0 for the show, 1-0 for each of us. But Sarah, it's been a 5-0 August. I don't want to jinx the pitcher and the no-hitter, but 5-0 on the show here on Betting Weekly Fast Break. So you've been dishing out WNBA winners, and I like your range. You've had some props. You had an index prop of the highest scorer in a game. So you're covering all bases and making sure you don't leave any stone unturned.
Well, top scorer, we do have to shout out to Adam Osimo, which is why we love our viewers so much. They know a lot about this too. And I had at first over 20 points that would have hit, but he gave me better value on that. And it was for birthday, 29 and her 29th birthday. So part of the context, part of the stuff I love about betting with all of you. And listen, our whole Fast Break squad has had a solid month. We don't want to get too cocky because we know the ups and downs of sports betting all too well. But I do feel like we've been taking little snippets of each other's strategies and analysis to get it done. It's been pretty great to be a part of. And I'm curious, what do you think are some of the things you're doing well right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the key. Is it is collaborative in so many ways. You mentioned the chat here on the YouTube channel, and everyone sees things differently, and it's good to sort of get others to at least throw something out there, put it on the table. And I like to collaborate all the time. And that's sort of the method to my madness. I talk to people that I do every day, and I just want to aggregate. Um, I feel like if aggregate was a more popular term, we'd use it more in the betting space in general, because it's really hard to be so married and myopic about your own way of doing things. And I think seeing things or seeing someone mention something or just a counterpoint, pushback, a devil's advocate, whatever you want to call it, it's just so much better to get more stuff out there so you can dissect it further. And that's where I've seen, my evolution the most is not just the people in my circle, but really being able to extract really good wisdom from hearing a lot of different thoughts.
Yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, when it's your money involved, right, you want to do the smartest thing possible. And sometimes that is hearing a different perspective, seeing the flip of the narrative, and deciding maybe not to bet on something. I think you see like my wide range of bets and also kind of how they're spread out. I mean, I think part of the success recently has been being careful and thinking, all right, if there's something I'm really confident about, I'm going to put a larger unit on this and maybe I'll back off something else if I'm kind of going back and forth with it.
Yeah, and it, like you said or alluded to, it could be confirmation bias, right? Like if I'm seeing it this way, what about you? And I'll ask an open-ended question, and then if they're saying the same things I'm thinking, then I feel really much that much more with that much more conviction. So it's good. Look, it's only been a week or so, but we've certainly been understanding the W. And sometimes it's each season takes on a different narrative. And we may not see it on a day to day basis, but if you take a step away, every season's been different. As the schedule increases, there's going to be different ebbs and flows. I think this year, the the impending or imminent CBA negotiations has weighed on some players, right? It's a big factor. We've seen injuries become an issue, not just Caitlin Clark, but others as well. The 44 game schedule last week, Satu Sabali talking about the tough schedule with their fifth game in 8 days and travel involved. So there's just different nuances that occur. We saw some midseason trades that I don't recall seeing during the year that often. And it's going to be a different animal down the stretch with so many impending free agents with nearly, aside from rookies or second year players, everyone else is unsigned almost. And you just wonder how it's going to manifest itself. Two of the worst teams in the league don't own their top pick. So maybe they won't be any tanking. So every year has different sort of little nuances. And I think it's important to incorporate, and you have to handicap the end of the year much differently than you do the beginning of the year. And that's all also stuff to keep in mind. But I'm pretty immersed in this, pretty locked in, and I just want to hope it stays that way.
Yeah, 100%. And month to month, even things change. And you think about some teams are just trying to get into the playoffs or fight for seeding without getting too injured. Like you mentioned, the injuries. That's a huge part of maybe not every win is going to be a million points and trying to find value bets here and there when it comes to that notion. And with the Liberty's unique injury situation and the team with this, like the Sparks, you think about how poorly they play defense sometimes. All this stuff matters and really can help with the context of plotting a bet and putting it together.
And that's why going back over the years, the sports books would have the sheets that you'd pick up, and there'd be so many stats on there. They're not worried about the stats and you knowing things because it's really difficult, and it's so we talk about it in baseball with trends. It's like, oh, this pitcher's won his last 3 starts on the road. Yeah, but there were different opponents, there's other variables that were moving, so it's hard to pinpoint that it's just home road differences. Now, in basketball, there's certain things, teams as a double-digit favorite. Well, playing the Sky as a double-digit favorite, much different than playing the Wings or off the back-to-back, middle of a road trip, at home as a double-digit favorite. We like to simplify things and isolate one little nugget or one little angle for a trend, but, it's like changing 8 things in a chemistry experiment and thinking one of them is the reason that outcome exists, and it's just not the case.
Right. And I think something you are particularly good at, I think Wes is too, it comes to minute management and trying to predict and go off the context of whose minutes are going to be managed in which ways with month to month, week to week, coming off injuries at certain parts of the season too. So that's something I've really enjoyed hearing from you guys. And I feel like people listening to the channel can really learn.
You know, again, you gotta just look at everything in a vacuum. It's almost like from game to game, day to day, whatever. You just wipe the slate clean. And a lot of it requires applying tools on the tool belt as a handicapper that you've picked up over the years, right? And I had a colleague who used to call it scar tissue, right? Like I remember thinking, looking at some games this season, just being like, old Doug would definitely be laying the 12 points here, but new Doug, not so much. Like basically recreational better Doug would have taken the bait here. Like last week, we had some people in the chat thinking like, "Oh, I like the Wings +8. Page just scored 44." It's like, no, 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 no. This is a bad spot. And then it became tact from a tactic standpoint. You understood how Seattle would defend her with their length, with Gabby Williams and things like that. That's what I love the most is sort of applying my acumen of actual basketball. A couple of weeks ago, I was heavy on the Valkyries at the Mystics because Shakira Austin was out, and I said, Natalie Nakase hunts mismatches all day. Stephanie Dolson starting. She's not good at defense. She's at the end of her career, things like that. She's going to hunt mismatches with her. And it turned out that Dolson only played 17 minutes, didn't start the second half, and her plus minus was like minus 30. And the game was a 5-point game. It was just one of those things where she was the weak link, and I was able to sniff that out. And in the NBA, it's much tougher because the scouting and the counter to the counter is so much more advanced, and it's a different game. The players are bigger, so they fill up the court. There's not as much movement in the half court. So I just think that's one of my sort of advantages in the W's. I can kind of sniff stuff out that's a little more predictable because it's not quite as advanced because the players aren't a certain way with the athleticism and the dunking. So you can do more because the game aesthetically is more pleasing in a lot of ways with the W. So you can kind of just anticipate certain things. But again, I'm cherry picking a few games I had read well. We'll see if it happens tonight, but that's sort of the analysis. Is just I've learned over the years certain tricks of the trade that I'm able to kind of keep on the tool belt.
And with the W, which I hope you guys, I don't know, I know there's some long term diehard W fans in here and also some new ones. And maybe you're starting to realize there's few teams. So it's an interesting era right now to bet on the W where you can kind of zero in. There's fewer teams, fewer players, and you can zero in on that a little bit more. There's less, like you said, with the advancement that comes with also having fewer options to go to. So it's fun to bet on
Yeah,
it.
13 team league. We're going to add a couple soon, and
Mhm.
it's growing. And But yeah, I love their playoff format. I used to like the old one too, where you get an automatic bye by finishing a certain, it's like the conference tournaments in men's basketball. You get the double bye if you're top seed, things like that. But I still like this playoff format, no conferences, none of that nonsense. You just have the top eight, and it's going to be a photo finish, I think, with that eighth playoff seed coming down the wire.
Yep, the Aces snagged the second last night, and we will get into that for sure. And hopefully, we can keep up the good vibes rolling with another two-game slate in the W tonight. But if you somehow missed it, Nigel Seeley and Sean Calvert previewed round two matches in the U.S. Open earlier today on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. Check that out and stay tuned for the rest of their fantastic U.S. Open analysis to come. Before we get to tonight's slate, last night the Aces won their 11th straight game to clinch the second playoff spot in the W, as I just mentioned. I mean, you think about their losses to the Lynx this season, including that horrendous 53-point blowout. Like, how soon are we to forget about that? But you have a hard time thinking they're going to have another prolific run. We really can't ignore what they've done in this stretch, especially with the second unit picking it up, as you've mentioned. So I'm wondering kind of what your read is on the Aces right now.
It's funny. I mentioned this, I think, last week as I talked to an odds maker who was hanging 40 to 1 a few weeks ago. I was like, why? I mean, they have Asia Wilson. You never know their upside if they can figure it out. And he just didn't believe in him. Well, I think we're all believers now on an absolute tear. Now, this game, I think we both saw it similarly in terms of what the point spread. I think the Sky was the only side we could play a double digit home dog. And I think the Sky are playing pretty hard now that Angel Reese is back. They have enough depth, but the Aces kind of answered every call, and I just really like how the pieces fit. I give Becky Hammon a lot of credit. I myself and others were criticizing her at the beginning of the season, having lost both assistants, Tyler Marsh to Chicago and Natalie Nakase to Golden State. We thought, hey, maybe Nakase was the secret potion behind the bench there for the Aces. But no, Becky Hammon figured it out. They made an acquisition to get Nalissa Smith, put her in the starting lineup, then started Kirsten Bell, moved Jewel Lloyd to the bench. Like that's coaching, right? That's figuring out, every coach's job at every level in every sport is to get the most out of your players, and you got to play with the cards you've been dealt. And she figured it out along the way. And sometimes it takes time. You got to look at how the personalities match. You lose Kelsey Plum, who's obviously got a big personality. So is Asia Wilson. So is Chelsea Gray. And Jackie Young's a little bit more on the quieter side. But just how all these pieces fit is part of coaching in the locker room and why we love sports, right? It's such a human element to this. So I give her a lot of credit. I wouldn't want to play them. I do think they're going to run into some trouble when they face the better teams. Now they have a big game tomorrow in Atlanta. I'm looking at Asia props maybe when they come out tomorrow because she always seems to go off against the Dream. But Atlanta's got an interesting sort of flow to their season. Klesko, the new coach there, has moved some pieces around. Griner not always playing with Brianna Jones because they want to run and gun. Obviously, he lost Ryan Howard for a while. So I like the Aces. I think the betting. I agree with the futures movement. They're now the third favorite, plus 600 at Bet Rivers. I agree with that. I think it's a tier with the Lynx and Liberty now that the Libs are getting healthy. I think there's a drop off to the Aces and the other teams, but I do think the Aces should probably be ahead of the Dream and Mercury, that next tier. So I'm full support of that. I think these are the right odds, so to speak. So I wouldn't bet them right now at 6 to 1. We're going to learn a lot more about them tomorrow, but I think we're going to learn a lot more about them in the playoffs. I do think they can answer the call in a lot of ways. I just wonder if their defense can hold up against some of the better offenses. Now, they're 25-14, 5 more games to go, and their adjusted win total. I love that Bet Rivers does this. Can they go 3-2 in the next 5 games? Well, they face, like I said, the Dream in the next game. But the question is, sometimes they may sit players the last game. That's the problem. I mean, they're not locked into the 3 seeds. You think all games would matter, but their final stretch here, after Atlanta, they come home for a 3-game set with Minnesota, who we might remember beat them by 1,000,000, which started this long win streak. And then they host the Sky in back-to-back games and then finish at the Spark. So they're done with the Eastern time zone for the regular season after tomorrow and head home for 3 of their 4. So I think they can go 3-2 in their last 2. I think they're going to win both Chicago games and then just have to win. So if I had to play this Aces adjusted win total, excuse me, I did the math wrong. They have to go 4-1. So that's different. So they're going to play the Lynx at home, which I think they'll lose. And they could lose at Atlanta tomorrow. They're slight favorites, I believe. Um, yeah, the juice is right. The juice should be on the under. So the Dream are favored by 2.5 tomorrow. I think the juice is right. I think under 132 is the right thing. But they did, I think, lose last year to the Sky, if I remember correctly, at home. And they could lose the Sparks in the finale. So I would only bet the under in this game, in this wager.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I do think after clinching a playoff spot, no matter who you are, the foot gets a little bit off the gas sometimes, and you take a deep breath, and it's like, all right, we kind of proved our thing here. I know Wilson's never done, and I know there's something to prove against the Lynx, but there's a reason why they have not been able to solve them just yet. And that presents a huge challenge in the future when it comes to the end of the season. And you're totally right about kind of the minutes drop off after you clinch a playoff spot. You don't want players getting injured, especially when you got an Asia Wilson in there. So I could see her kind of getting fewer minutes and getting the other kind of veterans or depth more to kind of get ready for a playoff run. So I guess we'll see what happens there, but I'd say under two.
And fees up to minus 1,000 in the MVP odds, which is kind of what I anticipated a week ago. So hopefully people were able to pick off minus 250 um, because I think that's going to cash now.
Yeah, she just came back and it was just business as usual. So you get the sense that that is kind of as solidified as it could be here. And tip her hat to her when the time comes. But we can move on to the game that we bet on and hopefully y'all joined in on. The Liberty barely escaped the sun with a 2-point win. Brianna Stewart returned for a team high 19 points in some restricted ish minutes. It was kind of how we drew it up, no?
It was. They had a nice first quarter lead, really came out of the gates blazing, but then they take sloppy shots. Now, shots weren't falling, but this is a team that I don't know, they just shoot a lot, and when things are going great, like I've said this about on-air performance and certain talent in the industry, whether it be news, whatever. Your sizzle reel can be great. If you're really funny, blah blah blah, that's 40-second stretch. Like their highlight reel is awesome. But over 4 quarters, they give up too many buckets, and I don't think they have the most efficient shots. Now, look, it was Stewie's first game back. Natasha Cloud wasn't playing, and the Sun hit a lot of shots. Lacan was fantastic. So give them a little wiggle room, but I don't believe in this Liberty. The Lynx are the rightful favorites. The Liberty we have not seen with that full lineup, right? The full front court with Mieselman, Jones, and Stewie, and then also Natasha Cloud in the backcourt with Sabrina. I do think there's going to be a lot of value moving forward betting Sabrina Ionescu unders. I think there's just so much ball movement with this team, and she's a willing passer, and she draws so much attention. There's always going to be people open. I'm going to bet Sabrina unders the rest of the way. I'm mad at myself for not doing it. I've hit on it a few times the last couple of weeks, but that is the way to go. I would highly recommend it. Now, the points props come down from about 20.5 to 18.5 to 17.5, but I still think she's going to be finishing in the 11 to 15 range because there's so much depth and because she draws so much attention and is a willing passer. So that's how I'm going to play that moving forward. We'll see what it is for the next game for the Liberty, but they got to work out the kinks. I think there's a little bit of the championship hangover from last year, understandably. They're in the mindset where they can flip the switch. Their adjusted win total with 6 games remaining. Will they go 5-1? Now, I have already wagered on this show and everything on the under, like 29.5, 30.5. So I am not a believer in the Liberty the rest of the way, but the schedule's fairly conducive as I call it up. And, they should be able to get done with they play the Mystics, they at Phoenix, at Golden State, at Seattle. The Mystics just aren't that good. I think they might be the worst team left right now with how the Sun are playing and how maybe the Wings. Yeah, the Wings. Um, so will the Liberty go 5-1? I would take the under plus money. I think this is a tough trip when they go at Phoenix, Golden State, and Seattle. Those are 3 tough road games. You basically need them to lose 2 of them for the under to cash. I would bet the under here. If I didn't already have positions on under 29.5, I'd be betting the under here. I don't want to back this Liberty team, especially the regular season finale. They're at Chicago. the Sky don't have their top pick, so they're going to run through the tape, so to speak, finish hard. They've been playing hard, and that's a chance Liberty could be sitting some players. So I would want no part of this over. I don't agree with the juice at all. So they have to go 5-1 to cash the over, or 6-0, of course. I think they're going 3-3, maybe 4-2.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this because I was thinking about wagering this today because you just think about, I mean, the way that they've played, first of all. And second of all, I just, on one hand, they do need to fight for playoff positioning, but they just haven't been. I mean, I feel like I keep expecting them to have a little more juice in these game to games. I mean, Stewart came back and she's the top scorer on the team, where like you would have expected maybe somebody else to step up in her absence more than they had. I know Ionescu had some pretty tough times shooting from the arc, but she got it together somewhat. But still, you would have expected a little bit better from her. I feel they should have had the push right by now that they needed to have. So, yes, obviously they're still going to make the playoffs, but I think they kind of have. I'm not having much confidence in them headed into the rest of the regular season.
I just think they are waiting for the postseason. I think there's a confidence and a swagger as a defending reigning champion that they think they can flip the switch, and I think that's what they're focused on. Um, they're also working on, they're probably focused on doing the right things. I don't think they really care the 2 versus the 3 seed. I think they have enough confidence that they're going to just be playing the right way come playoff time. That's what their priority is. And I'm telling you, they're going out west. They're going to have some tough games at Phoenix and then at Golden State and Seattle. Those 2 teams are fighting for their playoff lives, right? They're in the danger of missing the playoffs. So the Liberty with that shaky D, I would not be playing the over here. 167 juice is not right. I'd actually have it juiced the other way, like minus 130 to the under.
Right. I looked at that and thought there could be some value in it. And you just, I don't know. It's not just that they're trying, like blowing these games, and we're all thinking, oh my God, how could this be? Obviously, they're pretty injured. And you think about, yeah, they're waiting for the playoffs because they want to rest certain players to make sure that they're healthy. And it's a tough line to walk when you're thinking about, okay, here's the seeding that we need. And like you said, they might not be as concerned with that. They kind of want to get to the postseason and want their star players as rested as possible.
Yeah, look, it's you got to play amateur psychologist when you're a sports handicapper. You got to assess what's going on in the locker room, the situational handicapping that we talk about all the time. And so um, that's part of the equation, a defending champ, and then they have a target on their back. And teams are licking their chops against a shaky defense. And like I mentioned, coming up on the road trip, they're going to have a couple, they're going to be playing some desperate teams in Seattle and Golden State, and Valhalla is a tough place to play. I know the Liberty are going to be favored because they obviously have so much more talent than Golden State, but Golden State is a better coach and they're better kind of connected team. Um, I have no issue backing the under here if I were to play it. But again, I already have really good positions. I don't want to give that away, so to speak.
Yeah, I feel that. All good points there. And we will be locking in to tonight's slate very shortly. But folks, the NFL season is rapidly approaching. Travis Kelsey realized this, which is why Taylor Swift announced just hours before this show they are engaged, folks, and I can barely sit still. Luckily, Nigel and Neil got ahead of that big news this morning on Betting Weekly Dojo with an episode on how to beat sportsbooks with NFL props. It's much watched stuff if you're interested in the world of NFL props or NFL proposals. Did you walk into this news at all today?
I woke up to it because I was up late handicapping and slept in here on the West Coast. But I mean, didn't we all expect it? Not shocked at all. Kind of shocked the timing of it right before the season. I thought it would happen in like early summer, something like that. But yeah, I'm not like I joked about a second ago playing amateur psychologist, but I'm not factoring this into too much of the handicapping because I think they're going to be just business as usual, so to speak. I don't think it changes anything in their relationship really right now in the short term. I don't think there's much much like disruption in their day to day, behavior or whatever.
Right. And we don't know when it happened. It could have happened months ago and they just announced it now.
It's a very good point. Very good point.
I saw a post that said podcaster just proposed to recent guest or something. So that made me laugh. Thanks for
Yeah,
indulging us, folks.
right. Look, I mean, we've had these celebrity couples over the years tons of it. It's just different that it's in the sports world, right? Overlapping with the sports world. Usually it's Hollywood for both of them.
Yeah, last time we had that, I guess it was David Beckham and the Spice Girls. So our friends across the pond know that one quite well. But glad we got this out of the way because it is time to lock into tonight's WNBA slate and all of the huge playoff implications. This is basically the showcase of the bubble teams. The Storm face the Fever in Indiana. The Mercury take on the Sparks in LA. Not the easiest slate to bet on, but sometimes that makes it more interesting. So at Bet Rivers currently, the Fever are home dogs at plus 140 with a 4-point spread and a total points line set at 168.5. What's your read on this one, Doug?
Yeah, very different handicap as I alluded to yesterday. We had double digit dogs yesterday. Now we have two short spreads, both of them home dogs. I don't believe in this Fever team. I really like Kelsey Mitchell. I've always liked her, and I like how Leah Boston's game has grown, but I just think they're missing so many pieces, right? Even Sophie Cunningham's a big piece when you consider who else they're missing with Caitlin Clark and all the other point guards. Odyssey Sims is nice, a fine find on the waiver wire, but they're just missing a lot. And Natasha Howard can only do so much. I do like Aerial Powers edition. I think she gives really good energy, and I thought she looked great for having, that was her Indiana Fever debut. I don't believe in this Storm team. I was on them last week as it was a horrible spot for the Wings, but then they're laying 8.5 in DC against the Mystics, and they needed a buzzer beater. I just don't think this Seattle team has it figured out. I don't know what it is because I thought Brittany Sykes was the perfect addition. They needed some shooting, some ball handling, some leadership, some moxie and some toughness, and she checked all those boxes. And they've taken some time to integrate her, which makes sense. I mean, you add a ball handling scorer mid-season, it's going to take some time, but I just don't trust this team as road chalk. But I also don't trust the Fever here either. Now, I think this game could go over just what the Fever pace usually is, but I, mm, I, I, they just don't have. Lexi Hull's lost it a little bit this year. I don't know what's going on. They just gave up 97 and 95 to Minnesota. Now that's the Lynx offense that clicks. They were down 20 something to Connecticut, but the Sun are playing better. They lost at home to the Mystics, which was unacceptable, and the Wings. So back-to-back games. I just think these are two teams I want to bet against. So I can't pull the trigger. But if I had to make a wager on the game, I would play the over. I'm just not in a rush to do it because the Storm's calling card is defense. And I know it's tough to play catch up with this Fever pace, but the Storm should be able to handle their business. But I've said that a lot this year and they haven't been. So it's a stay away for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And you look at the Storm's recent success and you wonder, all right, did they get where they needed to be? I know all these teams are separated, these bubble teams, by like 1.5 games at most, but maybe they feel like, all right, we can take a deep breath here, but maybe they don't. It's like what you're saying. It's very hard. I want to bet against both of them when there are teams I'm more confident in. So maybe an over type. It's 168.5, but I don't know if I see anybody in the Fever stepping up and scoring. It really depends on what Mitchell's doing any given night for me when it comes to the Fever.
Well, right. She's their bell cow, right? Everything's going to run through her. So I was looking at some props. She's the only one I would consider 20.5, 21.5 her points prop. But if they put Gabby Williams, then there's going to be a lot of ball screens. And Kelsey's the fastest player in the league, I think, unless I'm forgetting someone. Um, and I just wonder who for the Storm is going to score. I think they'll score at will, but I just don't know Skylar's a really good player, but she's kind of methodical. Malonga's been great. I was actually wondering if she can win man of the year, sixth player of the year, because she's been such a dynamic double off the bench. And I do think they've compromised some of their production by using Malonga a lot, right? They incorporate her, especially at the end of the first quarter. They give her a lot of playing time, but she's now putting up doubles. But I think that's had a domino effect on the production of some other players. So I look at other people I want to like factor in, and I just don't love a lot of it. Like I think Skylar Diggins can do single digit scoring in some games. The fact that her points plus assists is 20.5, there's no way I would touch that, even though she's coming off an 11 assist game. I think she's struggling to fit in with this new lineup because of Brittany Sykes, and Diggins is a veteran and a pro, and she's deferential, doesn't need the ball. She's more focused on winning. So I worry about some of her production um, across the board. And it's tough when you Sykes join the team. So it's just been all over. And Nneka's at the end of her career, but she's still really good. Had 30 in the last game, but I mean Boston could, perform really well. So I just think these two teams are really tough to get a read on, and I just don't want to have to do it.
I know, I'm looking at the props too, and I'm kind of struggling to see anything I truly like that the value would even kind of be worth it to bet on. And then it's like they might not even accomplish that feat. It's yeah, I think I'm gonna stay away from this game and hopefully we can find something when it comes to Sparks and Mercury. So the Sparks are also home dogs at plus 132 on Bet Rivers. The spread is 3.5 with a total points line of 178. Where's your head at on this one? Oh, it dropped to 177.5.
Yeah, so it's hard to bet an under in any Sparks game, right? But if we remember, Kelsey Plum had a buzzer beater the last time we saw the Sparks play. And then the post-game interview, she talked about playing some effing defense. Now, if you've been bad playing defense all year, you don't all of a sudden aren't turn into like the legendary defensive. You lack principles and you lack an understanding of defense. That's just not in their DNA. So I don't think they're going to all of a sudden come out in lockdown mode. But you do wonder if they're going to have a little bit more effort. And the Mercury can score, but they can also lock down on defense. So I want to play the over, but these totals are getting really high. I mean, other games are around 160, right? 164. 177 is a big number. And do you really want to lay that with a team that just talked about prioritizing defense? And I don't know. I mean, the Mercury took care of business against the Valkyries. They were just so much better. And then they haven't played since that game because that was Thursday. That was their fifth. I mentioned it. Fifth game and 8 game stretch. So they haven't played since Thursday. They should be fresh. I just I haven't played since Friday, excuse me. I just I want to play the over, but I just don't see it. I think I'd lay the points if I had to, because I think they can score at will against this LA team. Now, their first meeting of the year went to 175. The next game landed 165. But again, the Sparks are a much higher scoring team of late. So I would actually lean under if I had to play this, because I do think, even though both teams can score and all that stuff, I just think this is going to be a little bit more intense of a game. Sparks need this game. They can't be sloppy on D. So yeah, I would look to the under just because it's such a big number at 177.5.
Yeah, wait, that's a great point. And also, when it comes to these games where it's two teams competing for something right now, especially off the context, like you mentioned with Kelsey Plum's interview, it's going to be a tight game if they're lucky, if the Sparks are lucky, right? I think they're trying to make that happen. And I don't I see them having a really high effort defense game. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm too confident in their defense because it's been pretty bad as of late. And I'm sure they're trying, even though it's not working out. But I do think publicly mentioning it and how the way things have played out and the fact that the Mercury are their opponent, it could set the stage for an under.
But I'll make it an official play. Let's get an official play on the books. I was a late ad yesterday with the Sun. Hopefully, I have similar luck today with the under. I'll make under 177.5 an official play for me.
I might I might ride that with you, but I don't want to keep copying you.
Oh,
But
you're not
I
copying
feel
me. You were ahead of me on the Sun yesterday before I was.
I feel I was looking at Brink over 4.5 rebounds at plus 108 on Bet Rivers, but I don't know. I'm not confident in the amount of minutes she's going to get. I know she had 19 last time out, but I know there was something with her ankle, right? Like she tweaked it a little bit, and it's just I don't know.
I know she didn't play the second half a couple games
Yeah,
ago. There's a lot of talent with the Sparks too. Like there's
yeah.
not enough minutes to go around, just given how well that front court is playing. Rakaya Jackson starts, she's been wonderful. Hamby's been playing solid as usual all season. And there's just a lot like Azare Stevens and things like that. I do wonder how many minutes Brink can play, but she's all about blocks and rebounds. So you're going to get max effort crashing the glass when she is out there. The question is she going to now? The way Phoenix structures their lineup with Mac being at center, Alyssa Thomas could get some players in foul trouble. Now, the last time these two teams played was way beginning of the season, so Brink was still out. So we just don't know if she's going to be used as a weapon to maybe defend AT, right? Because you don't have to go out to the perimeter. So Brink can kind of man the paint if they want her to. And then AT is only going to shoot like a free throw line jumper at the farthest. So I think she's probably going to have more minutes now. The more I think about it, I can see that. But with Mac and the front line of Phoenix, they crashed the glass as well pretty effectively.
Yeah, and also with Brink, she makes amazing defensive plays, but they're not always rebounds. So sometimes I get too caught up in that. So
Right.
I think I'll stay away from it for now. I think that might be like the player props in the playoffs will be something I will really be focusing on. But right now, I kind of like where your head's at with the under. I think this is such a high total points where, yeah, it's going to be relatively high scoring, but with the context, like we mentioned, it's going to be close. It's going to be a little nerve wracking if both of these teams are really competing for something. The Sparks are at home and they're not always the best home team, but they have something huge to fight for here. And they need every win counts here, as well as with the Mercury. That kind of, I don't know. I feel like this could be a close one and it could be a defensively sound as far as the Sparks will take that game. So I'm going to go in with you with the under here.
Right. Yeah. Well, we got good mojo from yesterday, so might as well
Yeah.
do it again. But you raised a good point about the Sparks. They have a losing record at home, a winning record on the road. One of the I think the Seattle Storm are the only team that can say that, which is crazy because the Storm typically have such a home court advantage catching teams on road trips. So weird sort of, you know, splits on these teams, just really strange to be so much, to be worse on the road. Sorry, worse at home than on the road. But such is the life of handicapping with the Sparks and Storm. They've been sort of a head scratching units all season.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it kind of affects the handicap going on to the entire season. I know they had a really rough start to the season, and a lot of their games happened to be. Oh, hello, Rangoon. Do you agree with our takes? Yes, I think she got the Valkyries last time, the buzzer beater. So I think that's a good juju for us today.
And, it's National Dog Day. So the
Oh,
cat
she
needs
said
some love
no.
too, right? Let's not forget about them.
She said, "You'll never forget about me." But all right, Doug, thanks so much for joining me. We will be taking the under at 177.5 between the Mercury and the Sparks. We'll see if y'all will join us and hopefully we can stay hot. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode and we can keep racking up these wins together. Thanks, guys.